Good evening. How are you? My apologies. You have to listen to me 2 weeks in a row. I'm sorry. There's a last-minute change, and I never say no to my friend, Livia, when she asks. So thank you for having me. We have another presentation that's not prepared by me. This was prepared by is it the Federation or the Council? Yeah, the United States Spiritist Council. One of many in workbooks that they prepare for spreading the word. I would encourage you. I think at the end there's a slide on their website. You can download all this stuff. There's a lot of good material. I found your initial reading. It's going to tie in very nicely to this. And it hit home for me. Obesity, right, is going to overtake, right now it's probably, it's on the list in the top 5, but it will overcome other things and lead to more heart disease and more diabetes. The point I'm trying to make is all these things that we do to ourselves that kill us, in the eyes of, we learned this from Andre Luis in some of his books, it's a form of suicide, yeah? Things that we do that lead to our demise, right? Not as bad as we think about it now, some of the things we could do to end life, but this slow process of killing ourselves is a form of suicide. So we have to be careful and think about the impact of that, yeah? So I'm doing my part. I'm exercising and I'm trying to eat better. Yes. Oh, you can't hear me? Am I not talking loud enough? Now I'm paranoid about the microphone. They're like, come in. Come on. Thank you, Livia. So let's jump into this. I'm going to do my part with this, though. I'm trying to not live to eat anymore. I'm trying to eat enough to just live, yeah? So, the title of this talk is very similar. It ties in well to prayer. This is a series of 3 talks that we're going to do over time. The next one that I do in a couple weeks will bring these 2 together and teach you a process at home to do this. We call it the Gospel at Home. So we'll do a mini instructional class in a couple of weeks. But this ties, it takes that step from prayer, right, that we talked about last week, and it ties in to a process, right, or a mindset or habit-forming process where we go from just that prayer itself to tying it into our plan, into our goals for transformation internally, as well as, spiritual involvement. So let's jump into the slides. Is that loud enough? Is it good? All right. I'm going to stop asking. So, ask and you shall be given, and it shall be given to you is a verse, right, from, I think it's in Matthew or one of the books in the Gospel, right? Knock at the door, right? It'll be opened. What does that remind us of? It reminds us a lot of getting up and work, yeah? Before you go to heaven, you got to help yourself, right? If you help yourself, good things will happen. And it talks about producing for yourself as far as your loved ones. And if you help yourself, you open the door, right? Things happen. If you just sit around and wait, right, you're expecting to have things drop in your lap, it doesn't necessarily happen. So you have to do your part. First, you have to knock. You have to rattle the cage. You have to knock on the door. You have to shake it up and ask and try to make things happen. And this is what they tell us in this slide, right? It ties into seek and you shall find. It ties into the law of work, right? Which is a natural law, a law of God. And it talks about the law of progress, which tells us that as a spirit, right, we're all created similarly, right? We're simple and lacking knowledge, right, when we're first created. And through the course of many lifetimes, we evolve based on choices we make, right? The more we work, the harder we work, right? The faster and more efficient we progress, the more we progress with less pain and suffering, because we are working, right? Every opportunity we have to grow by facing adversity, working past it, is another opportunity to grow. And it ties into us evolving intellectually, right? Intelligently as we learn, which ties to what? What happens as we grow intellectually, typically? We grow morally, yeah? As we get smarter, as we experience more things, and we learn better ways of not just surviving, but also doing the right thing, which we'll learn more about here in a minute. So this is a nice way they present these things in the presentations that they put together. They have 4 or 5 line items, and it kind of goes in priority, right? Kind of like a chronological tale, right? So up top were cavemen, yeah? And before that, right? Looks like monkeys almost, right? But primitive man evolving into that upright giant that we are today, right? Full of intelligence. But when we first consider the evolution of man, what did we worry about? Survival. Right? A roof over our head, which could have been a cave. A fire, maybe, right, at some point to keep warm. And what food we were going to put in our bellies and the bellies of our children. And then, survival of the race, right? And then, thanks to God, right, we weren't happy. We weren't satisfied with that. We evolved. We had this never-ending desire to improve our situation, as it says here, right? So what did that involve, right? That involved more than just our muscles and our stomach and surviving. It involved using our brain, right? And through the expansion of our intelligence, we became smarter, and as such, we could rationalize right from wrong, good from bad. So hence, we develop morally. And I think even though we live in a violent time at times, you read the paper, you're on social media, you listen to the news, one would think that we live in a violent world, right? And I guess to some extent we do, but I think we'd all agree that the world is less violent today than it was 200 years ago, than it was 100 years ago. So we are growing morally as a culture. So once we fill our bellies, right, and continue the race, once we expand intellectually and morally, the next thing we realize pretty quickly is we've got to feed our spirit, right? We've got to overcome those primitive things, those material things, and evolve spiritually. And that's what brings most of us here on Thursday nights, right? I only come because my wife makes me, but most of you are here because you want to get better, right? I'm kidding, by the way. Hey, I like coming. But that's why you're here, because we have this inherent clock or this inherent rule book, right? It's in our conscience, right? It's in our spirit. Remember, I'm a prisoner in this body, yeah? My real life, my real being is a spirit in the spiritual realm. And I'm imprisoned in this body for a reason, right? To work, to make decisions, to choose. And I grow as a result of this desire to improve, this promise that I will evolve to be a pure spirit at some point. At my own pace, at my own time. Some faster, some slower. So the last piece here is pretty obvious, but I think it's worth stating, yeah? If God intended us not to use our muscles, right, to not work, we wouldn't work, and they would atrophy. We wouldn't have the ability to work, right? And by the same token, the fact that we have this brain that expands and learns and grows, right? The fact that we have that was given to us means that evolving morally is a law as well. So we have to use both, our brains, our bodies, and that's linked to the spirit. And the use of all these things help us grow. Easy, right? Sounds easy, right? All right, so the question I get sometimes when we talk about spiritism or mediumship specifically, right? I have family members, friends. They know that I believe in this stuff, right? And they kind of do too, but they don't want to admit it, right? They say, so how come you don't have all the answers if you can talk to spirits, right? How come you still work a lot, right? How come all the earth's problems aren't given to us from the other side, right? Well, the answer's simple, right? If it was that easy, would we have any free will? Would we have to work, right? What would we be? We'd be machines, right? Or just, I don't know, not spiritual beings. Yeah, we'd be lazier, yeah, exactly. So the whole idea here is knowing that, yes, we have a destiny, and that's becoming a pure spirit, Christ-like perfection, right? That is our destiny. That will happen for all of us at our own pace, at our own speed. But it's not given to us in the sense that it just happens. We have to work, right? So these big discoveries happen because people work. They use their brain, they use their might, they use their will, and, someone discovers vaccines, someone discovers new technology, right? We go to the moon, we're going to go to Mars. People open spiritist centers, right? People help the poor. I mean, all these things happen because people work. They get up every morning and they work, and things happen. So this is a little hard to read, but this is a moral perspective as described by Spiritism, in the sense that if we read these words from the gospel, right, and we understand it from a broader picture, it'll help us understand why work is so important and why things aren't just given us. But listen to this. It says, "Ask that the light may enlighten your way, and it will be given to you." So we talked about prayer last week. And we talked about, we could pray for lottery numbers. We could pray for wealth. We could pray for our enemies to not do so well so we can beat them, right? We could pray for anything, right? But really, when we're praying, right, when we're asking, what we should be asking for is perhaps not an outcome or a specific thing, but ask for strength. Ask for the courage. Ask to be enlightened, to receive what's really the best for us. Because sometimes what we think we need, what we want, isn't necessarily what's best. And our prayers aren't answered, right? But we talked about that. Sometimes it's great when prayers aren't answered because better things happen. What you really need happens. And this is what they say, right? Ask that the light may enlighten your way, right? You'll receive the positive direction from your mentors. What's the next one say? Ask for their strength to resist evil, and you will have it, right? So we all face temptation daily. We all have our things, whatever it may be, right? And it's not the things that are bad or evil, right? It's our desire to do them. It's what it does or supersedes the things that we should be doing. So we should ask for strength to resist those things that take us away from the light, right? All this is about is following the light, right? And the things that aren't the best choices for that, we want to avoid. So we want to pray for strength to resist that. The next one reads, ask for the assistance of the good spirits, and they will come to you, right? Accompany you, and they will serve as your guides, right? They're not going to do the work for you. They're not going to necessarily open the door. They're not going to push you through it, right? But if you ask for assistance, if you ask for their guidance, right, you'll be able to receive their intuition, right, their direction. They can't do it for you. You ultimately are responsible for your choices. But when faced with decisions, when faced with, maybe I should go this way, that way, ask for guidance and tune in and listen. Ask for good counsel, and it will never be refused. What does that tell us? I often say this, and I have to remember that it comes across as being critical or judgmental. So please know that I'm not judging, because I appreciate and believe what people say, but I'd like to say a different perspective. Oftentimes you hear people say, I'm so blessed. God has blessed me. Or God bless you, right? My contention, my belief, and I think this hits at home, we are all equally blessed, right? We all have access to all the same blessings. God does not favor me. God does not favor you anymore. It all exists. Everything we need to survive, to thrive, to grow surrounds us, right? It's there for the taking. It's there for the assistance if we tap into it and we allow ourselves to receive. So I like, when I pray with the girls at night, I like to say to God in our prayer, like, God, allow us to receive the blessings that you've provided, right? Because they surround us. We just have to accept them. So that ties in to that piece. And then the last one here is, knock at our door and it will be open to you. But ask sincerely with faith, fervor, and trust. Present yourself with humility. And we talked about that with prayer yesterday. The piece that I think is important here, they're all important, but the one I take away from this, and we'll talk more about it in the next couple of slides, is sincerely with faith, right? We talked about that last week. We all believe in God. We all have faith, right? But how many of us really have faith when we're having a tough time, right? And we'll jump more into that. But if we had true faith, right, we'd worry less about the problems, right? It'd be easier to get through it, I think, and we'll talk about that. right? And this is where he talks about it, right? Or they talk about it. The problem here, right, is that we, people, right, we lack trust and faith in God, right? We think we can do it ourselves, right? We think we can overcome, right? We spend so much time worrying about the problem rather than focusing on the solution, or just trusting like it doesn't really matter. This is what I've created, this situation, I'm in this situation. I have faith that I'm going to get out of it, that everything I need is around me, right? But we don't often believe that or stick to that in our time of need. So it says here, what happens oftentimes is we don't see God's involvement, right? We get so wrapped up in the problem, time goes by, we somehow work through it, or we're into the next phase. Things are working out, right? But we had so much stress and angst that we don't even necessarily see God's hand or God's assistance, or the fact that we were being guided because we didn't let ourselves connect. So, very important. And this is a short story. They use remember the story of Moses parting the Red Sea and the Jews getting away, right, before they could be captured. And this little boy comes home from his school, right, where he learned from the rabbi that story. And he describes to his mother the story about armies and tanks and guns, I think, right? And then the mother asks him, Johnny, is that what really happened? Is that how it really happened? He says, no, but if I told you the truth, you wouldn't believe me, right? Who believes that a man can part the Red Sea? Who believes that a man can turn a loaf of bread into bread for hundreds, right? Who believes that 5 fish or whatever it was could be feed the masses, right? Nobody believes that stuff, right? So the kid tells a story. He uses modern day explanations for how Moses did this, and because if I told you the truth, Mom, you wouldn't believe me, right? So true. And that's an example of how, yeah, we say we have faith, but do we, right? Do we have faith? All right, so how many of you like acronyms? I love them, because I'm 51, so my memory is not the best, you know? I hit my head a few too many times playing sports. So knock, remember this, right? What's it say here? Keep, right? The K is keep your faith, right? It takes the same faith to knock on the door as it does to see it through, to work the plan, right? Have faith. Keep your faith at all times. Don't give up, right? Don't stop believing that God provides, right? Never give up, right? The N is never give up, never give in to doubt and fear. It's okay to have doubts and fears, right? But the key here is to not allow those feelings to move you from your position. My wife and I, we went through a pretty rough time a couple weeks ago. Not together, not personally, but a personal thing that I was dealing with work. And I've been married now, almost 14 years. I love this woman. She's an angel, right? Luckiest man in the world. Ask me, I'll tell you. Don't ask me, I'll tell you, right? But if you had told me I could have loved my wife more, right, than I did, I would have said, you're crazy. If you told me I could have seen or been shown that she loves me more than I thought she did, I would have said, no way, the woman loves me. I walk on water. You know, I'm kidding, but my point is, through adversity that we were facing in this other situation, we over the course of 3 or 4 days, I lived, never give up in fear and doubt, right? It was proven to me, right, that amazing, right? So my point is not to tell you how lucky I am. You guys all know that. I talk about it all the time. The point is, wherever you are in your life, whatever you're facing, remember, N, never give in to doubt and fear. Because in your stance, in your determination, the people that love you, the people that are there for you, physically as well as spiritually, they will come, and they will fortify you, and they will assist you. And I lived that just a couple weeks ago. It's amazing, right? And not just your wife, right? Friends that you know care about you, right? And you never doubted them. But they come out, and it's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like they were going through it themselves. It's amazing. Anyways, I'll stop on that. I think we understand. Out of the ordinary is the O, right? If you're looking for the door to be open, the ordinary way, right? So how do we open doors, right? We grab the knob or we turn the handle. If that's what you're looking for, right? and that's the only way you think it should happen, you're going to miss other potential openings, right? There's always a back door. There's always other ways to do things. But if all you're doing is focusing on a traditional way to solve a problem, you could very possibly miss, right? So you have to understand that there's many different ways for the door of opening, for a door to open. And sometimes it's not the obvious solution or the obvious way. So keep your eyes open for out of the ordinary solutions. Now, once you knock, once you have faith, once you don't stop because of adversity, you got to make choices, right? You have to choose, right? And that's what the C is. It says here we have so much power in our ability to choose, right? We can choose to stand our ground, choose to be grateful, choose to forgive, choose to be genuinely happy for other people, choose to do what's uncomfortable, or we can choose to quit. We can choose to give up. We can choose to do what's fast and easy to solve a problem, right? So you have to choose. If you do nothing, right? Some of us do this, right? I'm guilty of it sometimes. I'll let other people figure it out. I'll wait. The solution will present itself. I do that with managing people sometimes, Susie doesn't get along with Johnny, and Johnny doesn't like Steve, and they all have to work together, and I'm the boss, right? So I can make an executive decision, and I can solve the problem. But sometimes it's easier to avoid the drama, and they'll figure it out, right? Susie will quit because she's fed up, and that's okay because, all these different things, right? The way the thing. But did I make a choice or didn't I? I made a choice to do nothing. So if it blows up, whose fault is it? My fault for making no choice because I was the one that's supposed to solve the problem. So remember that. Making no choice is still choosing. And then K, the second K, keep your heart and mind guarded. Be careful of what you allow in and who you allow to sow into you. If you are standing at a door waiting for it to open, you need your cheerleaders, those who have been shoulders to shoulder for you to stand on, and those who will patiently wait with you, passing the silent time with words of encouragement. Right? That's who you need around you. Right? Be careful who you spend time with. You show me the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I'll show you what you're like and who you are. Right? I don't know if that's a spiritist principle, but it's definitely a self-improvement. All these different things you read about improving, right, your situation. It's definitely who you spend time with kind of defines who you are. And that's why I'm happy to say I spend a lot of time with a lot of people in this room, because you guys are awesome. All right? It's awesome to be around you. All right. What's next on our list? Ask, seek, knock, right? When one door closes, other doors open. And if we spend too much time on the door that closes, we miss the opportunity of the open doors. So don't spend a whole lot of time looking backwards, right, is what they're telling us. All right? The important piece here is that we have to knock with a positive and active attitude. We have to believe that we have the solution, that we can find the solution, that it exists. How about that? It exists. Right? And the active piece is we've got to be willing to work. Right? You got to knock, and then you got to be willing to follow through and to work. Right? And this is it's going to happen. The ultimate goal. If you listen, we're big believers in free will, right? We make our own choices. We live cause and effect or consequences, right? But ultimately, there's a destiny for each of us. And that's the evolvement of our spirit to become a pure spirit. Everything else in between, we decide, right? Our fate in that sense. But we are going to evolve. We just have to keep working. So most of you know Joanna DeAngelis and Divaldo Franco, right? How many of you ever read Joanna's books? Yeah, a lot of you, right? They're some of the hardest books to read, right? Very hard. It reminds me of graduate school. Had to read the same sentence like 40 times sometimes, just to get it, right? But what she teaches us, what Divaldo pens from her, right, with his mediumship, is ways to cope with adversity. She's like a psychotherapist, if you ask me. She tells you the problem. She then tells you how you contributed. And then she gives you the hard, loving way to work through it. And the point to her, this story that they're quoting here, Vittoria, is the psychotherapeutic effects of pain and suffering, right? Adversity. We talked about this last week a little bit. When the world gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? When the world gives you bad news, thank God for the adversity, because through the adversity you're going to grow. And it's so easy to say, but it's hard to thank God for problems, right? Even though we know we created them ourselves, right? It's hard to thank for that. All right. How many of you know how a pearl is formed? You guys probably know, right, guys? Pearl sits in a shell over years, right? How does it get out of the shell? Violently, right? You guys ever eat oysters or clams? Same idea with a pearl. You got to shuck it, and sometimes you cut your hand. And it's crazy, right? With a pearl, this beautiful pearl that evolved over time from pressure, right? You get it out of the shell with violence. And the point to this is we grow our consciousness, our spirit. We grow in similar ways, right? Through the turmoil and the fire and the ash of the drama we create from our choices. We grow, just like the pearl did, out of violence sometimes. All right? So even though that's a bad situation, right? It hurts, the things we go through. That act itself isn't evil, right? It's part of our growth. It's part of our evolving. So ultimately, it leads to permanent change, permanent good. And without pain, where would we be stuck? We'd still be in lower stages of evolution. It's through pain that we grow. And crossing through those changes, through that pain, is how we evolve. And I think that's important to remember as we face challenges. So when Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within us, right, he basically indicated to us that the possibility that we live it, we experience it, we go internal, right? And if you listen to Eastern philosophies and different meditation folks, right, they talk about going within and connecting, right? And they're basically, Christ is basically telling us, and in this book from Joanna, basically that we can do that. We are, that heaven is that internal state in a lot of ways, in the sense that we can create that bliss through our thoughts, through our actions, and lighten our load, lighten our lot, evolve more peacefully by doing that and connecting. So these are a bunch of quotes from Thomas Edison, you know, that guy that invented the light bulb. He did it on his first try, right? Or was it his second try? Thousands, right? What's his number here? He said, I don't think the number's here, but 10,000 ways, right? I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways how it wouldn't work, right? So genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, right? And I don't know. I just watched a documentary on Nikola Tesla, and Edison hired him and fired him, right? Very interesting documentary, but Edison's wasn't presented in this as a spiritual guy, right? He's a real materialist, right? But he's so right, right? Got to work, right? And that ties not just to the material life, but to the real life of spiritual evolution. So they call this recycling what we think. I call it changing your tapes, right? I'm 51, and I've been listening to a lot of the same tapes since I was a kid. But slowly, little by little, as I come here more often, as I study, as I work, as I watch others work around me, I'm changing my tapes. I'm recycling my thoughts. And it reflects in the way I live. Am I perfect? Heck no. I got a lot of work to do. But definitely living better than I did a decade ago. And we do that simply by changing these ingrained habits that we've created. They say, and it depends what you read, but the most common number I've heard is it takes 21 decisions on your part to change a habit, right? 21, you got to do the good thing or the new thing 21 times, or the bad thing 21 times to make it stick. So it takes time. Not only do we have to choose to do better things, but we have to stop doing the bad things, and it's all possible if we can get past our internal resistance to change. How many of you thrive on change? You just love when you walk into work the next day and everything's different. Nobody? Exactly. We hate change, a lot of us, right? It's terrible sometimes. But if we can face this resistance to change, if we can accept it and fight through it, we will evolve faster. All right, so how do we do this? Developing good habits. All right, we all want to make that curve to the left instead of the curve to the right. And they make a good point. Most of us have a job, right? Most of us work for a living, right? So it's already a habit. Get up and go to work, right? We got to pay the bills, right? And if we want to improve our internal self, right, we ought to make that internal transformation. It also requires positive action. So just like we get up and go to work so that we can get a paycheck and pay the bills, we have to set priorities and eliminate contrary habits, right, one at a time, by establishing a process. And that's what we'll talk about here shortly. This is Benjamin Franklin. We talked about him a little bit last week. And the reason this slide is here now is because he talked about order and he talked about virtue, right? So if we're going to make changes, if we're going to develop good habits versus bad habits, we have to set priorities or order. And Benjamin teaches us here that in order to address those issues that we have to resolve, we have to follow a list of priorities. So if you, and you don't have to share with us now, I won't share mine with you, but think about this tonight. Now, write them down, make a mental note. What are the top 5 things you need to work on to live better? Are you going to answer? Oh, he's waving. I thought he was raising your hand. Go ahead, tell it. No, he's waving to the baby. I know, I see. Sure. Come on, you can share. Don't be shy. No, I know. I'm kidding. Babies love you, right? I know. I understand. I swear I thought he was raising his hand. That's so funny. What would you change? What 5 things to get closer to the light, to follow the light? Okay, 3 things? Want to do 3? 20? Well, no, come on. That's next week. Let's start with a smaller number. Yeah, I'm sure we could all change a lot of things, but think about it. Make a list and prioritize it. So they go on to teach us that understanding our potential and purpose requires order, just like Franklin taught us, right? It also requires patience, determination, and daily achievement. If you ever try to change something, what do we all do? Not all of us, but a lot of us, come January 1st, we make resolutions, right? We join the gym, we buy equipment, we're going to lose 20 pounds, and we're really good until about January 3rd. Maybe February 3rd, right? And then we slack off, right? So what did we lack, right? We had a plan, right? We had a purpose. We probably even organized it, but we didn't have patience or we didn't have determination, right? So I think that's why it's easier to make smaller plans, right? Little pieces, little pieces of success. Identify those and try to work that. And the key to this is try to never lose sight of the importance of truth. You have to be honest with yourself, right? We all make mistakes. We all have adversity. We all have areas of our life that are tied to ego, pride, vice, right? In many different ways. When we put our head on the pillow at night, don't beat yourself up for today or yesterday, but make a conscious list. Man, I could have done this, and this better, and then be gone with it, and make a plan for tomorrow. I'm gonna do this better, and that's all it takes. Sounds so easy. That's all it takes, guys. All right. So Ralph Waldo Emerson is quoted as saying, what lies behind you and what lies before you are tiny matters compared to what lies within you. Isn't that huge? Yesterday doesn't matter. Tomorrow is so far away, right? The precious present. There's a little tiny book, if you ever find it. I found it in a book loaner shelf in school, in graduate school. Tiny book, maybe 40 pages. The precious present. And it's all about right now. The precious present. All we have is right now. Yesterday's done, right? I couldn't tell you. It's called The Precious Present. It's totally, I think, a secular book. But it was it's what I needed at the time. It just presented itself, right? The precious present. But it's all about right now, living in the moment. Don't live in anxiety and fear about tomorrow, because what's that going to do? Just make it harder, right? Don't live in guilt and remorse about the past, because you can't change the past. But you have the ability right now to change your thoughts, your actions, and your next choice. Right? Very cool. This guy Ralph was onto something. Right? Famous guy. All right. So, ask and it shall be given to you. Right? So we're going to start wrapping this up. I only have a couple more slides. This repeats what we said last week, right? When someone prays, they open up their psychic fields, which become malleable as to record the heavenly answers. How many of you grew up, and maybe some still to this day, there's prayers that we say that we just know, they're memorized. So as we're saying those prayers, do we let ourselves feel them? Do we, or just say the words? The idea here is heartfelt. Nothing crazy, long, nothing rote or memorized, just from your heart. Just open yourself up, right, and connect, right? I think we know the transforming powers of prayer. I think we've all experienced that to some extent, but we don't let ourselves experience it as much as we should on a regular basis. You ever watch somebody that really connects when they pray? You ever witnessed that? Or maybe you've just experienced it yourself. There's some days when I pray where I'm gone. It's like I'm in this meditative trance, right? I can feel my body floating, right? I'm disconnected. I'm really there. How often do we get there, though, right? How often? So we have to try to get there more. And we can do it if we just let ourselves. So they remind us to cultivate, right? Uplifting thoughts, seeking to live in a manner consistent with the higher goals of life. It's not a choice, they're saying. It's our duty. We have a responsibility, right, to do this, to grow, right, for health, for peace, and for happiness. So it's our responsibility to try to do this more. How can we do this? Well, you're doing one of them right now. You're sitting here on a Thursday night, right? The other way is when you're driving. How many of you commute a pretty good distance to go to work? You're in a car every day. A lot of you, right? What are you listening to? Howard Stern? I did that for like 10 years. That guy was funny. I don't listen to him anymore. My wife said I couldn't. I'm kidding. My point is, what are we feeding our brains? What are we feeding our soul? So I'm like, I go back and forth. Some days I just got to listen to Pearl Jam because that's how I deal with traffic, right? But I do that less and less, you know. Most days I'm listening to cardiac radio. There's spiritist conversations. How many of you guys have access to blogs or what do they call them? Podcasts. I'm so behind the times. Podcasts, right? But spiritist conversations. Daniel Assisi, Flavio Zanetti, and Susanna Simonis are usually on these talks. And they're 24 minutes to an hour. But it's awesome. I just plug in when I'm driving, and it's awesome stuff, right? Cardiac radio. There's Wayne Dyer is another one I listen to. This other guy, Ram Dass. Oprah's got stuff. You're into Oprah? Is it awesome? All right. I'll check it out. Is it mostly her talking?
No, she's interviews.
So she's interviewing people.
It's called Super Soul.
Okay. Super Soul. So wherever podcasts are available, just tune it in. All right, thank you.
You can actually go to YouTube too and just click there.
Click it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you. It's another one to check out. But that's what I'm doing. I'm not saying I'm necessarily right, but when you fill yourself with uplifting stuff, with lessons as opposed to just occupy your brain with music or news. I tell you what, the days I listen to them, sometimes I listen to NPR or some other talk radio, I get to work and I'm cranky, right? There's not a lot of good news out there, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So I try to spend more time listening to that kind of stuff.
But they don't broadcast.
Well, we did meet some folks on Saturday, or Sunday was it? It was Saturday at the Caravan. Was anybody at Caravan? Oh, there's a couple, and I don't have a lot of time, but there's a couple for the last 7 years. They traveled Brazil in I wouldn't even call it an RV. It's a pickup with a camper on it. Right? It's not even an RV. Right? It's not a fifth wheel or a big RV. But this husband and wife, he's got to be my age, and she's probably a little bit younger, so in their 40s, 50s. For 7 years, they sold everything. They sold their house. They sold their car. They quit their jobs, and they have a little TV show or a podcast, something online that got picked up by Global or something. But they searched the world now for examples of goodness. Right? It's amazing to hear their story for 7 years. And they were in America for something, and they were at Caravan. So it was neat to meet them and hear their story. So, yeah, right. If we look, we will find examples of goodness. So we have to look harder. All right. So, and look, it's right there, right? That's what we're saying. Incredible things come our way every day. But if we overlook them because we're so busy looking at the negative situations that we're currently going through, we miss some. You got to open your mind to the goodness. Find the positive in everything. That's me, man. My wife laughs at me, right? we used to see, I used to work with her, and patients, you know, sometimes they're just unhappy, they're cranky, and they'll tell you 20 things that are negative. But they said one thing positive. And I still do it. I can hone in on that one positive thing, and you can see people's transform, right? You know, you're right. Yeah, that is good. That is positive, right? So I can help other people find that in my clinic, right? But I got to find it in myself too, right? We got to do it in our own lives. No matter how crappy your day was today, or it could be tomorrow, think right now, what's one good thing that happened today? Can you see it? Can you feel it? How'd you feel when it happened? Focus on that and that energy and multiply it. Hope that makes sense. All right, only 2 more hours, guys. All right, you're paying attention. That's good. So here we go. When life gives us 100 reasons to cry, right? When they show life, I have 1,000 reasons. When they give us 100 reasons to cry, try to find 1,000 reasons to smile. There's always reasons to smile, right? Somebody loves you. I love you, right? God loves you. The center's here. There's good books to read. How many of you missed a meal today? Did you eat today? Did everybody get a hug? If you didn't get a hug, Livia will be at the door on the way out. Right? Right? You get a hug today. There's always a reason to smile. There's always something positive, if you find it. You're not going to hug everybody? No. We talked about this, Livia. Make the announcement. I'm going to hug everybody, and now you're backing out. I mean, all right. I'll do it if you don't want to. Okay? I don't mind. I'm a hugger. All right. That's all I have. I'm sorry. I make you laugh. But here's the reference. It's spiritus.us, okay? I didn't come up with any of that. I just talked about it. They got tons of stuff. It's beautiful. So thank you for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.